All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Maybe a couple other people might show up, but we'll get started. So before I get into this, it's helpful for me to know um, kind of what your backgrounds are and what your goals are for being here today. So by background, I just mean please tell everybody your name as well as if you have a major, what that is. And then the next question would just be, do you have a research study in mind that you're already, a paper you've already done? Are you just here just for information and you're not necessarily working on anything? I'm just kind of trying to see so I can target the rest of the presentation accordingly. So Monica, do you mind if I start with you?
Yeah, sure. I'm a psychology major,
Whoop,
and
whoop.
um, I'm in professor's class in Psych 3 honors, and we're working on a paper for self-efficiency and how everything changed when we I'm sorry, um, how the students' anxiety went from when we switched to online school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use that paper for the presentation.
Okay, so you've decided that that's what you want to work on. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Lisette, do you mind going next?
Hi everybody, my name is Lisette Martinez. My major is biology, and the reason why I'm here is because I just wanted to learn more about this, this whole research conference, and just to get some more general information about it. So yeah.
Okay. Is this your first semester at Mount SAC or have you been here longer?
I've been here longer, yeah.
Okay. And have you worked on any research papers for any classes yet?
Actually, I worked on some for my speech class, not research papers, but there's this one topic I had in mind where I did sort of a speech about something called health disparities in the United States, and that caught my attention.
Okay.
Look
All
more
right.
into that.
All right. Thank you. Kang?
Okay, hi, so my name is Ken. I'm currently the chemistry major. This is my first semester at Mausa. Actually, yes, first semester, even though I took the summer term also, but this is my first semester. And I just come here to learn more about the process of research. I think I haven't done any like real research paper, even though I write like 2 or 3 for some of my class, but I still have the feeling like it's not really official, you know.
Okay.
Yes,
You might
yes.
be surprised. We'll talk about what constitutes research and what doesn't, but you might be surprised.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks
Yes,
for
so I can wait
sharing.
to learn.
Okay. Win says you'll go in just a minute after Sam, but in case you haven't figured out, we're just saying our name and if we have a major and if we have any papers we've written that are research-based or if we have any ideas. So Sam, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Samantha Meyering. I'm a biology major as well, and I did a research paper actually for Professor Kolchakian's class last semester for the psychology class. So I was thinking about presenting that paper. It was about how like parental pressures, like academic pressures could like influence mental health.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks. And then, oh, Wince is left. All right. Well, maybe he'll be back. Maybe internet connection issues. So let's go ahead and get started. I will share my screen here. Give me just a moment. Okay, everyone can see this, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, So let's go ahead and get started. I called it getting the 411 on research conference participation, not 911, because sometimes students are a little nervous about this whole process, but I'm here to demystify it, make it less scary, and share with you that you definitely can do this and just give you the information that you need. So I want to start with just seeing how much you already know about research conferences. And so I'd like you to answer these true false questions. And I have a little poll thing that I'll have you use to do that. Why is it not letting me pull it up right now? All right, well, maybe it's just easier. Just go ahead and either type in the chat or shout out your answer. What do you think, this is true or false? I need to have completed a research study where I collected data, in other words, empirical research, in order to apply to present at a research conference. What do you guys think?
Mm.
False.
I think
Okay,
it could
I
be
just have the
true.
feeling in my mind it's
Yeah,
probably false.
pretty sure it's false too.
okay, good. All right, you guys are already rocking this. Yes, it is false. So research in terms of these conferences is a broad term. It applies to a lot of different things. It can apply to any major, any class. They don't want to discriminate based on, you know, what major or division you're in. So it can be anything in the humanities. So obviously psychology, sociology works, anything in the sciences, you know, biology, chem, whatever. We've had projects submitted via the arts before, pre-professional programs. So it's really broad. And it, well, I don't want to give away an answer to another question, so I'm going to leave it at that for now, but let's move on to the next one. An abstract, which is part of the reason you're here today, is to learn, you know, how to write that, is a detailed description of your paper or project. Would you say that is true or false? Go ahead and shout it out, because I'm unfortunately, for some reason, I can't see the chat.
It's
I
true.
think it's still.
It's true,
It's
but it's like a summary.
Yeah, I mean,
is a summary a
whole.
detailed description?
Yeah, there we go. All right, so the
the
word
word
detailed.
detail. The word detail is the problem.
So yeah, that might have been a tricky word. I think you guys understand the basics. So I put false because you're not really submitting your full actual research assignment. A lot of students think they have to submit the full detailed paper. I mean, yeah, you want some amount of detail, but the abstract is really just an overview. It's just, like you said, summarizing your paper, and hopefully making it intriguing enough to get the conference organizers to want to accept your project in. So you definitely want to make the most of your words. This particular conference that's coming up, that one is a 250 word maximum. So we'll talk more about that and what kind of things go in it. And if you have questions at any time, just stop me. There's probably a lot of these things I will cover that you'll wonder, but please feel free if there's anything confusing just to ask. All right, next one, true, false. An abstract is the first thing you should write when you're writing your paper, since it's the first page after the title page of a paper.
False.
All right, I got a quick false on that one. Why'd you say false? Was that you, Samantha?
Yeah. Well, it's because usually when you start your paper, you're not really sure what your paper is actually going to cover, like what your methods are going to be, or like what your what the actual research that you're going to have in the paper are going to be. So since the abstract is kind of like a summary of the whole paper, it's better to get the paper done and then make the summary of the
Right.
paper.
It's hard to make a summary of something you haven't written, right?
Right.
So yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's written once your paper is completed because it will contain info from each major section of your paper. So you'll be able to give a much more accurate and realistic account of your project if you do it at the end. So hopefully you guys have already thought of papers you've already written that will make your life easier, just because the deadline to submit is 2 weeks from now. I think it would be hard to start something brand new, but not impossible. I've seen students just be really fired up and crank it out and then get their abstract done in time. So number 4, true or false, a high percentage of Mount SAC students' abstracts are accepted for this UC Irvine Research Conference. What do you think?
Let's say true.
All right.
The feeling of true.
Right. This would be really a mean question if it was like, false, you're all going to get rejected, right? It would be terrible. So luckily, that's not the case. It is true. Mount SAC has had a fantastic acceptance rate. And it says over the past few years, but really the truth is for quite a while. You know, part of the reason is because we work really closely with the students to help get their abstracts up to a certain level that we know that they're looking for. You know, the students who just submitted on their own, well, actually this conference you can't, but in general, at the other conferences, there's tends to be lower acceptance if you don't kind of work with your faculty mentor, me as the research coordinator. So definitely use your resources to help you. But we, last semester, I think we had about, I'm giving approximate, so I think we had about 30 applications and about 25 got accepted. So that's pretty good, right? This is where we all go, right, yay. Nothing.
Yes, that's really good.
Okay. All right. Last true or false. You should really be comfortable with public speaking to present at a conference.
No, because there are different ways of presenting.
Say that again. I heard no because what?
There are different ways of presenting.
Okay. And what do you mean by that? What do you mean by different ways?
There's the PowerPoint, there's the board, there's the
Okay.
blanked out. But yeah.
All right. Well, let me reword it then because that's true. You should be comfortable with public speaking to choose to do an oral presentation.
No.
I think it's true.
I think it's probably true.
Well, actually, I said false for this one because a lot of students think, oh, I've got to be really good at being a public speaker to do this. But the realistic thing is they know that everybody presenting are students, and 99% of those students, it's their first time presenting ever. So, you know, you're holding yourself to a higher bar than what, you know, you're being held to. Now, of course, you want to practice and you want to do a good job, but even experienced students get nervous. So they are viewing this as a learning opportunity for you, a chance to get your feet wet. You don't have to be perfect. So I only say this just to like take some pressure off of you. It's a fun and supportive environment. And perhaps it might even feel a little bit less scary now that it's going to be all virtual. You can pre-record it sounds like they're going to be doing it asynchronously so that you could be recording your presentation in advance and then submitting it. They haven't ironed out all the details, so I can only share what I know, but that seems to be the direction they're heading. So that might even feel a little less scary to you this year. Any questions before we get into the meat and potatoes of this all?
Not really, not so far.
Okay. All right, so let's get into it. So the basic outline is I'm just going to share with you more like what it's like presenting at conferences. We'll talk about writing the abstract. We'll look at some samples, and I'll be giving you plenty of tips and suggestions. I'm kind of a true crime lover, so this little cartoon clip over here I thought was kind of funny. All right, here we go. So the first thing is, like I said, don't panic. We're here to help you. Don't be nervous. I know it's easier said than done. But if you are a little bit nervous, that's okay too. But I can promise you, you're going to do a great job. And once you're done, you're going to be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. So I want to tell you about the upcoming opportunities. For sure, we know that the UCI Community College Honors Research Conference is happening. They have not picked their date, but it's going to be a Saturday in April. I think they're looking at like the 23rd or whatever that Saturday is, but they haven't finalized. The deadline to submit the abstract to me is November 18th. I know that sounds much earlier than the conference itself, but That gives me a couple weeks to help make any final revisions before I submit it. And then that gives their committee, because they don't really do much over the holidays, it gives them time to make decisions and meet and all the things that have to happen to make this conference go smoothly. Usually you would hear back in, I would say February is the latest you would hear back, but sometimes it's like later in January even. The conference will be virtual, so that part we know for sure. Bay Area Consortium is another conference that the honors program encourages. It is typically held at either Berkeley or Stanford, and we typically fly students up and back the same day. So it's a really cool opportunity to see a particular campus. This conference is usually in May. And right now they are deciding whether they're even going to have it or not. But if they do have it, it's going to be virtual. So unfortunately, there won't be any flying anywhere. So it would be virtual if they have it, and I will keep everybody posted when they decide. So your big opportunity this year, normally we have a bunch of opportunities, and, pandemic life, we've got one for sure. So definitely try to participate in that one. And that's got a deadline in just a couple weeks. Any questions before I continue? Okay. So you might be deciding, because on the form that you submit, when you submit your abstract to me, you have to say whether you'd like to do it as a poster presentation or an oral presentation. There's no wrong answer to this. Both experiences are valuable. I've even had students submit 2 different projects. One they submit for consideration as a poster, and the other one they submit for consideration as an oral presentation. Historically, they've allowed you to have, you just can't submit the same project for both. You have to have 2 separate projects if you're going to try to do one of each. But don't feel like you have to be that ambitious. I've only really ever had 1 or 2 students try to do both. So, you can just decide. With a poster, there is a template that they have, that we send you, that you would fill in your information on a poster. You can see an example on the bottom left there of what a finished product might look like. Now that is if we were in person, we would print the posters for you and it would look like that. We're going to be submitting it virtually, so you would just submit your document with all the info on it, and it would go up onto their website more virtually. The presentation, like I said, they're planning to do it asynchronously, so you would likely record your presentation in advance. Again, I don't have all the details, but those are the 2 main options. So any question on those? Okay. So what is it like to actually present at a conference? This is coming directly from students' mouths. Obviously, I think it's fun and exciting, but the students are saying the same thing. They say fun, interesting, exciting, informative. A lot of students comment that it helps them increase their confidence, their self-efficacy. They, especially when it was in person, they enjoy networking with other students. I'm really hopeful that they will try to have ways for students to still network and interact with each other, even if it's virtually. And they say that they would recommend it to everyone and that everyone can do it. Students often say, well, if I can do it, anyone can do it. So yes, definitely every single person can do this. So it tends to be a really good experience. I don't think I've ever had a student say, oh my gosh, I wish I hadn't done that. Oh, I'm so embarrassed, this is terrible. I never hear stuff like that. And people will be honest. So I think you would have a really good experience if you do this. I really encourage you to try. Plus, it looks really awesome when it's time to transfer and you're trying to set yourself apart from these other 4.0 or 3.75 or whatever it is GPA students, to show that you have presented at a professional research conference as an undergraduate student. This looks really good. It really gives you a leg up on the competition. So I think it's a really good thing to add to your resume. All right, so before I get into what is the abstract, let me just pause one more time to see if you have any questions at all. All right, so what is an abstract? You might have heard abstract like abstract art before, but really it's not that at all. So what is the abstract? It's a short overview of your study. I've already mentioned before, this particular conference wants a 250-word abstract. Once you get accepted, and if you want to compete for certain money awards, yes, this conference typically gives out money awards for having like the best abstract. We've had Mount SAC students win regularly. Once you get accepted, then if you want to compete for those awards, you would write a slightly longer abstract, which is 400 words. So that's really just adding a few more sentences to the one you already have and submitting that. So once we get to that space, you know, I'll let you know and we can work together on that. But for now, just focus on the 250-word abstract. It'll contain key information from each section of your paper, kind of like a highlights reel. And the purpose is to give the reader the opportunity to get familiar with what is your topic, you know, what's the content going to be like, if, you know, for this project. If you did an empirical study, you would have information from each of those 4 sections, like the intro, method, results, and discussion. I know, Monica, you're in my Psych 3 class, so that will fit for you. But for some of the rest of you, if you're not doing an actual empirical study, you wouldn't have those exact 4 sections, but you would have bits and pieces of the most important things you're going to be covering. So from the abstract, the reader should be able to tell, like, what is the purpose of the study? What did they research? And what did they find? Those are the 3 most important things: the purpose, what they researched, and what they found. An abstract should be succinct. It shouldn't be overly wordy, and it will have the main points. And your grammar does need to be really solid, the writing style and the grammar, and that's where I come in and I can help you with that. So I strongly encourage you to meet with me if you would like my feedback, because I can really help you make sure the grammar and the writing style look good. I don't know all of your disciplines, so it's always good to have a faculty mentor that can help you with the content part of your abstract. So I know some of you were like bio majors and things like that. Hopefully you can find a faculty mentor in those areas to help you if that's what your project is on. For anyone who can't find a mentor, I'm happy to be it, even if I'm not, you know, in that discipline, but just be aware that I won't know your content. So usually you would go to the professor who teaches that course you wrote the paper for and ask them if they would be willing to be your faculty mentor. And I would say 99.9% of the time, they're going to say, yes, that's wonderful. So any questions? Okay, so the analogy that I use, if your paper is like the movie, then the abstract is like the trailer for the movie. So people don't go and make the trailer for the movie and then hope the movie turns out like the trailer was. They make the movie and then they come up with a trailer of like the highlights reel or like the best of, to get people to want, you don't want to give away your top spoilers, but you want it to be exciting enough that people want to then go watch the movie. Well, you want your abstract to be exciting enough that people want to accept you into the conference and hear more about your project. So, you know, I think there's, you know, a little skill that goes into kind of what you share and what you don't, since you only have those precious 250 words. So again, we will look at some examples today so you'll get a better idea of what is needed. So like I said, it's typically 250 to 300 words. There's a conference that normally happens in the fall that didn't happen this fall called SCR, and that's 300 words, but if they have it next fall, I'm just letting you know in case they have it next fall. But the UCI one is the one we're gearing toward right now, and that one is 250 words. Okay, so the format will vary. It will depend on the discipline. I pulled the next set of slides directly from the SCR website. You'll have access to these PowerPoints later, but what are the components of a typical abstract in the humanities? So things like, you know, what is your topic? Why is this topic important or relevant? What's the problem or research question that you're trying to figure out? Why is it important? What are the main bodies of evidence that you've looked at? So this could be, you know, other people's research studies that you looked up in the journal databases. And what's your take-home message? So what is the overall conclusion? It might look a little different though if you're in the sciences. I mean, maybe you have done an empirical study and you might have some of these sections, you know, an actual hypothesis and a method section and a results section. So, base what goes in your abstract on the type of project that you've done. For fine arts, I didn't hear anyone mention that that's your focus, but for fine arts, you don't have to have all of those components in there, but a lot of times the fine arts ones are written more in first person because it just makes more sense sometimes depending on the type of project. So there's a variety of types of projects that are accepted, but empirical, I've mentioned this word before, but empirical is, it's data driven. You're conducting your own research study. We call it primary research versus the other ones I've just mentioned are more secondary. So primary, you're actually conducting the surveys or you're conducting the experiments or whatever. So those are empirical studies. So you'll want to make sure you have the purpose in there, a little bit of information about your participants, and I'm more specific there in that bullet point. You don't have to include your statistics in the abstract because those would be in the actual paper, but you want more of like a sentence about the overall results without all the specific numbers. And then of course the conclusion. So the conclusion, those three things that I mentioned earlier will happen no matter what your discipline is. It'll be, what is your purpose? What did you find out? What are your, I said it earlier, your purpose, what the background research helped you find, what are your conclusions? Okay, so just to be more specific on the purpose, so an example, let's say you're writing about the relationship between lack of sleep and academic performance. So you would need to say like, so what? Why does this matter? The reader wants to know like, why is your research important? What is the purpose of it? So you might start off your abstract by considering the following things. Why did you decide to study it? Why is this research and why are your findings important? Why should someone read your entire essay? And then turn those questions into a single statement. The purpose of the current study is, or the purpose of the current research is. That could be your starting sentence for your whole abstract. Sometimes it's the second or third sentence, depending on, what you're studying, but something that's along those lines should be in there. The purpose of your current research is. The methodology, this may not apply to everyone in terms of whether you're doing empirical research or not, but how did you accomplish your study? So who were the participants? How many? Did you use surveys? Did you do an experiment or case study? And if you reviewed the work of other people, you can explain that briefly instead. So if you did secondary research, take a look at that second bullet point under how did you accomplish your study. Either way, you're probably going to want to mention these background studies and then describe whatever evidence you have to support your claim. The results, so this is pretty obvious. Just provide the results. What did you find out? Were you able to answer your research questions? Was your hypothesis or your argument supported? So just in general, what are the findings? And then your conclusion. So back up, finish your abstract with a conclusion, some kind of closure. So like, what is this overall meaning? What are the implications? Things like that. So this all sounds lovely, but it's much more helpful once you see specific examples, which again, we will do. Let me just give you a few more tips and then we'll get right into those examples. So people sometimes ask me, is it okay if I don't have 250 words, if it's less than that? And I would say, yes, but try not to make it too much less. I would say to aim for 225 to 250 words. The closer to 250, the better. But I've rarely seen abstracts accepted if they go too much lower than that because the person probably wasn't specific enough. So if you're at 150 words and saying, I'm done, you may not be thinking about it as deeply as they want you to. Try to be honest. Sometimes we try to like overstate and sell ourselves, but it's not like an interview. I mean, it's kind of like an interview, but we want to be real. So you don't want to say, my study definitely showed that this is true. It's like, that's a little too strong. You might want to say things like, this may be demonstrating that, so because it's it's just one study in a sea of information. So those kind of words like may and being a little bit tentative, especially in the hypothesis phase, is important. Any major restrictions or limitations should be stated, but not overstated. You don't want to draw a lot of attention to limitations in the abstract, but especially when it's time for the presentation, you're going to be expected to mention what some of the limitations are. That is part of the process. Also, try to avoid jargon or slang. You have to remember that people attending this conference are not all in your major. So, you know, I just wrote some random examples here. A lot of times there's like medical jargon or even psychology jargon, and not everyone's going to be in that major. So saying I need a nurse to room 12 stat, you don't want to say words like stat. You want to come up with the more, Webster dictionary version of that. So just try to make it so that anyone in any discipline, the people that are reviewing these to decide if you're going to be accepted in the conference, they're going to be from all different disciplines. So it needs to be something understandable by everyone. If you include any sources in the abstract, make sure you cite them properly in APA style. You don't need to have a bunch of sources in your abstract. It just takes up words that you might need to explain your project to have a bunch of people's last names and year and all that for the citation. But 1 or 2 well-placed citations is okay. You do need, though, at least 5 sources for your paper. So 5 solid sources. So not just like Joe's schizophreniapage.com. You want it to be, solid research.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the abstract, if we use sources, do we just do the in-text citation or do we have to do the full one?
Yeah, you just do the in-text citation. So it'd be like the author, like if it was by Smith, 2010, you'd write parentheses, Smith, comma, 2010, close parentheses.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You want to have a chance to revise multiple times. So try to avoid waiting until the last minute. I know we're getting close to the deadline, but definitely come get feedback from me sooner than later. I will do my best to help you. I have some open appointments next week if anyone wants to meet with me. So just let me know. I'm here for you guys. So I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of just effective wording, and then we'll get into the actual abstracts in a minute. This is something I took from one of the research conference websites as well. So they have an example of a less effective statement and a more effective one. So go ahead and take a look at both of these and tell me what you notice is different between the two of them.
And the first one, there's use of like I, like first person
Okay.
wording.
And what does that make it? It makes it less what?
The second
What's the
one's
word?
definitely more academic.
Yeah, the second one's more academic. The first one's more like you're talking to a friend, right?
Yeah, it seems like more like, like casual
Yes.
speaking.
And the second one is also more what else?
Specific?
Yes. Yes. So they're going to want to see very specific things, not a lot of generalities. They want to know exactly what you studied. Not just like, oh, I meant, this study examines the importance of dreams. Well, it's like, what about dreams? There's a million directions you can go with that. So what are your variables? It should be clear what your research variables are from your purpose statement. Good. Okay. So again, I'm going to send you these. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it right now, but this is just an example where they break it out into like each section, like what the purpose of that part of the abstract is. So, starting with the title, the opening sentence, the relevance of the project, where they're presenting the key research with the citation, then where they have their conclusion. I mean, it flows, and it's really important that it flow. So again, I'll send you that later to look at, but I want to get a chance to practice. So let's jump into that. There's two things that, in addition to your 5 sources, the application form is going to have you create 2 different things. One, we have to submit a 25 or less word summary, brief description, I should say, of what the project is. It's just like the tagline, and they usually print that in their little program so that people can see the basics without reading your entire abstract. These are examples of ones that have been submitted and accepted in the past. So this literature review seeks to understand how the structure of Vietnamese, it should say language, impacts the way Vietnamese speaking individuals view the relationship between identity and society. While existing virtual machine placement schemes aim to meet demands for efficiency within a cloud network, many tend to overlook the importance of security. This next one came from probably like an English 1A or 1C class, and an analysis of 3 female-centric films. This does say I discuss, so, you know, it's not like it's a hard and fast, like if you say I, you're out of there. But I think it's a little more professional to say, you know, this will be discussed instead of I discuss. But anyway, I discuss how defense mechanisms of repression and denial ultimately lead to a woman's dangerously unstable mindset. The purpose of the study is to analyze and evaluate the effectiveness of alternative methods such as expressive writing and art therapy in reducing depression, and a Jungian interpretation on the human psyche and the path of individuation presented in 3 psychological thrillers. And that one even was accepted. It's not necessarily a complete sentence like the other ones, but it still gives a brief description. So any question on these brief description samples? Okay. And usually I would write this after I write my abstract. So first you write the paper, then the abstract, then this brief description, I think. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice. Pretend it's your job to review 100 abstracts. We're not going to do 100, we're going to do 3. But you're reviewing a ton, and these are 3 of them. How would you kind of rate them? So the things you're going to want to look at is, you know, does it explain why the audience should care? Does it sound interesting? Does it explain, you know, kind of what the issue or the problem is or the scope of the research? Does it explain the approach? I've had it be unclear before in abstracts, did they do an actual experiment or are they just researching other people's stuff? You need to be clear. You might want to call it a literature review if it's secondary research and you didn't do an actual like study yourself, you're just reviewing other people's study. Call it a literature review right there in the abstract so that they know what your method was. The results, you know, do you find out what the results are? You know, there are times it's okay to include numbers, but other times those numbers aren't necessary. You can just say the results more with the words. And then the overall conclusion. So we'll give a high score to, you know, 5 will be a high score and 1 will be, you know, kind of a lower score. But let's take a look at this first one. I'm going to let you all read this to yourselves, and I'm going to give you just like 5 minutes to go ahead and try to fill out. Let me go back to the previous one so you can write down the categories again. Or if you want to take, if you have your phone and you want to take a picture of it, or if you want to do like a screenshot, just so you can use that when you're making your ratings. Got it?
I got it yet.
1 sec.
1 second. And if you can't and you just want to be more casual and be like, you know, yay or nay, that's good too. We'll be flexible. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna let you guys go ahead and read this and then do your best to evaluate it. We'll take about 5 minutes. Why don't we go ahead and just do the first one together just to put you on this less on the spot. Did you guys get a chance to finish reading it?
Yeah, I was almost done.
Okay. So what do you guys think overall of this one? If you had to give it a letter grade, let's do that. Based on what I've shared so far, would you give this an A, a B, a C?
Mm, I think I would give it an A. I
Okay.
think it met.
I think it's an A. It met
Yeah?
everything.
Okay. So what do you guys like about it?
It's very clear and it states exactly what the person is researching.
Okay. Yeah, so you don't have any questions about what's their purpose, right? You know their purpose.
Mhm.
Did they draw your interest at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was pretty clear. They drew in the interest. Was it well written?
I think it was.
Yeah.
Did they give you the results? No, I don't mean all the
Yep.
numbers, but like a sentence about the results.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Did they give you a conclusion? Like a solid conclusion?
I think it's pretty solid.
Okay. So it seems to touch on a lot of the important things. Now, this is obviously an example of a primary research study, which is not required, but that's what this student did. And this not only got accepted to the conference, this particular student won, I think it was like at least $500 for this abstract. Sounds cool,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I wanted to give you an example of kind of like what they're considering to be like a top one. Let's go on to the next one. So again, I'll give you just a couple minutes to read it and we'll just talk about it together just in the interest of time. All right, did you guys have a chance to finish?
Yeah.
Okay. Now keep in mind, we can't compare, comparing this one to the last one is like comparing apples and oranges because this one is not empirical, it's more the literature review style.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with just in general, what letter grade would you give it?
I feel like I would give it like maybe an A.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think I would give it an A as well because it does like state what the purpose of the research was, like what it's trying um to like find.
Okay. Okay. So in addition to that, what else do we like about it? Do you think it's well written?
Yeah, it's easy to read.
Mm-hmm. Now, even if this wasn't an area you knew much about, did it draw you in at all? Does it seem interesting?
Yeah, just for me,
Sometimes
at
interesting is
least.
subjective, but I think if you can make someone who's not even in that discipline like curious to learn more, you've done your job, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it clear what this person is studying?
I think it is pretty clear. The way they state it, like the link makes it clear.
Yeah, what's that sentence? You see that one that's like the third sentence, the purpose of this, and it shouldn't say literary review, it should actually say literature review. I don't know if, I can't remember if this is, I don't think this was the final draft of it, but it was pretty close to this. This is just what I could find. But yeah, the purpose of this literature review is to understand how the structure of Vietnamese impacts the way Vietnamese speaking individuals view the relationship between identity and society. That sounds pretty clear to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty clear what variables they're looking at in their study.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is an example of non-empirical secondary research that I would also give an A, and in fact, a different year. So the first one I shared with you was from 2 years ago. This one was from this past year. And she also not only got accepted, but she won money as well. So I'm going to share with you one more. This I know that I've started a trend here, but it may not hold up. Still a really good abstract though, I think, but let's figure out why. So go ahead and just take a minute to look at this one. I wanted to give you one in a different discipline. So this one comes from an English class, and let me know what you think. All right. Do you have a chance to finish?
Yeah. It's good, but it is a little hard to follow. I think if you have like no background in like ethics, philosophy, because I think
Okay.
that's what it is, right?
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? So let's start with, I always like to start with the positive. So what do we like about it?
It's well written.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely well written. Does it seem clear what the purpose is?
I was gonna say, I'm not sure. I think I
Mhm.
will have to read it again to
Yeah.
really understand.
Right. Yeah, and this, I haven't even seen the movie The Avengers, so all of this is Greek to me. But if I were advising this student, I might have them be just even more direct in the first two or three sentences about the purpose is, and then no one will have trouble finding it. The purpose of the current research is, really helps drive it home that that's your purpose. But it's very clear toward the end that this student is applying. It's not just a film review or a book report on a movie or whatever. It's tying in different concepts to, and it's okay. You don't have to explain what the victim effect or acceptable loss or categorical imperative is yet. I mean, obviously in the paper and in the presentation, hopefully that would occur. But in the abstract, I think it's okay to have the reader not necessarily understand, but the reader at least would know for sure, okay, this student is tying in these 3 concepts they've been learning about in a different class into applying that knowledge to a character in a movie. So any other thoughts on this one? FYI, this student presented as a poster presenter. So this student had a really neat looking poster. If you want to get a little bit creative with what your poster looks like, I can send you samples of this after you get accepted if you decide to do the poster. The other 2 presenters applied as oral presenters. And yes, this student was also accepted, obviously. This particular one didn't win an award, but again, there aren't very many awards. There's pretty much only like a handful of awards out of the hundreds and hundreds of students that are presenting. So the fact that we won awards on those first 2 is wonderful. Okay, so again, come visit me. This semester I have office hours at various times on Tuesday through Thursday. You can also email me to, emailing me to set up the appointment is the best approach. That way I can know about how much time to put you in for and make sure it's a good fit for both of our schedules. So definitely email me. I love meeting with students and helping with research. I'm very passionate about research. So that is the gist. And let's of course end on who can do it? You can do it. Like I said before, please don't be scared. You definitely can do this. All right. So what questions can I answer for you? We've got a couple minutes left. How are you feeling? Maybe I'll start with that one. How are you feeling about applying? Are you excited, scared, neutral?
What happens after you get accepted?
So once you get accepted, then you start working on your presentation. So typically that means if you're doing an oral presentation, you're probably going to be making a PowerPoint presentation, and I can help you with that as well. It sounds like they're probably going to have you do like recordings of your PowerPoint. But again, I'll get more detail on that later. Or you start working on your poster and we send you the templates so that you can start plugging your information into the poster.
Okay.
Good question. Any others? We've also had some students get published from this opportunity. So if you have gotten your abstract chosen to present at the conference, you can also apply to have it be published in something called Building Bridges. And we've had a lot of our students get published in that. So in addition to saying, hey, I've presented at a research conference, you can also say I'm a published author. How cool is that?
That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
For sure.
And again, rare. Not very many students can say that. So I definitely encourage you guys to go for this. All right, I want to hear one word from each student about your current feeling related to all of this that we've been talking about. Pick the word that sums it up the best. No right or wrong answers, just honesty.
More informed.
More informed?
Yeah, more informed.
Well, that's good.
Less
And-
stressed or
Oh
scared.
my God, what'd you say?
Less stressed or scared.
Okay, good.
I think I will go with exciting.
Ooh,
Because I'm
exciting.
exciting to write the abstract.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I feel good too. I feel like more confident since I have a better idea of what it's going to be like.
Definitely. Knowledge is power, right? So, all right. Well, I won't keep you any longer, but if you have, I'll stick around for a couple minutes in case anyone has any questions that they didn't ask yet. But I hope you all have a great day. And again, just email me. We can set something up for as early as Tuesday if you'd like to meet. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Hope that was helpful. Have a great day.
Thank
You
you so
too,
much. Have a
Professor.
good
Thank
day.
you.
Bye. It's good to see you guys.
Professor, there was something I wanted to talk to you about alone about our exam for Tuesday.
Okay. Lisette, did you have any questions for me?
No, I didn't. Sorry, I was just like having a little trouble with my computer. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I hope to speak with you soon.
Okay, sounds wonderful. Thanks for coming. Let me go ahead and turn off the recording, Monica.